Alright, if you guys seen my first video on how to keep your worms warm during the winter, I was sadly mistaken. I mean, I thought that this was going to be a warm winter here in Oklahoma. Before this week, our temperatures just dropped down into the 20s, low 20s, but we had this winter storm that just came through, and man, it did some damage on my worm bin. If you watch my previous video, you'll see the setup, and that's a pretty good setup if it stays like, you know, in the 20s. But if it gets down into single digits or even into the negatives, then you're gonna have to do something else. You're gonna have to get a space heater, and you're gonna have to do this setup with what I have right now. I should have done this a few days before. I thought what I had was gonna work, but like I said, I was sadly mistaken. This is all trial and error. I was just tilling up the garden and was getting ready to plant some onions and some potatoes. I had no clue that this was going to come in, but you know, it is what it is. You live and you learn. This is definitely keeping my worms at a temperature where I'm not going to lose all of my worms and then, you know, just have to start over with the cocoons. A lot of people say that during the winter that a lot of your worms will die, and then the cocoons, that they will stay good until it warms back up, and then they'll hatch out, and then you'll have just as many worms as before you started into the winter. But I mean, my goal is I want to keep all my worms, and I want to keep my cocoons. I want to keep producing all throughout the winter. So I had to set up something to stay productive all throughout the year. And you know, there's always going to be trial and error the first time you do anything. You know, you got to get experience with things, and the best way to do it, just dive in and just do it. You know, when something messes up, you learn from it and you don't do it again, and you just come up with new strategies and new ways to do things. So this is what I have right now. I made a frame out of my lids from my bins, my plastic bins. I have quite a bit of bins that I use for shifting, and I was running 2 bins. I reduced down to 1 bin. I have a lot of these lids, so I went ahead and I framed up this little frame with the lids, and then I placed a heater inside there, a little space heater. I covered it up with 2 blankets, and it's staying pretty warm. It's blowing right there on my bin, and plus I got my seating heat mats, so it's -2 right now. So in my bins underneath the seating heat mats, the temperature is in the 60s. On the sides, it's in the 50s on one side. It's in the 30s on the other side. It was completely frozen on the side that was in the 30s, and some on the corners. But I took a blow dryer, I heated it up. I got the frozen soil and castings to unthaw, and now I'm just letting it set with this heater and this little homemade tarp that I made. This is what you can do if you are trying to make it through the winter. Thank God that I'm far enough down south where it's not like this for months at a time. I only have about a week to a week and a half of this cold weather like this, into the single digits and into the negatives. And then after that, we'll get into springtime, and it'll be smooth sailing after that. I can start growing my garden. I can start, you know, having a lot more food to feed the worms, let my worms reproduce, and just keep multiplying, keep making that good castings, and keep making more worms. So let you guys check out what I have and what I came up with. This was just a spur of the moment deal. Came outside to check on my worms. I knew the temperature dropped, and I had some corners that was froze over. My worm bins was way too cold, so I had to come up with a game plan real fast because I was running out of time, because I knew that the temperature was just going to continue on dropping. At the time, during the day, it was in the teens. At night, it was single digits. Well, now, during the day, it's single digits, and at night, it's getting down into the negatives. So this has definitely helped me out. If you guys are having a problem with your worms freezing over during the winter, I recommend doing this, but just be careful. You know, just make sure that you get a good heater that's not going to catch some stuff on fire and you know, burn everything down. Make sure that you got enough space that it's not directly on your bins or directly on the blankets or the plastic. Make the tarp big enough that you can put your heater in there and there's enough room, but it's also staying really warm. In the shed, it's cold right now. It's really cold. As you can see, I mean, it's freezing cold. But inside this tarp, I mean, as soon as I lift up the blanket, I can feel the heat rising up, and so it's doing the job. It's working right now. Another week and a half, I'm done with this winter stuff, and I'm ready for it to start warming up. Winter is my least favorite season. You know, I'm all about the spring and summer, and fall's all right, but man, I prefer the hot weather. This cold stuff, it's not for me. But I'll let you guys check out what I have, and hope you can, you know, build off some ideas of this. So what I've done is I have all these lids, and this is on an old tire rack. So I have created like a box with these lids. I'm gonna go ahead and put like a blanket over the box, and then I placed a heater, a little space heater inside. So I got a space heater inside here. Yesterday my bins was completely frozen over here in the corners. But you can still see. I mean, that's just solid as a rock. That's just complete ice. Same way. See, my bins are not in very good shape at all right now. This is the hardest time of the year that I'm going to face. So see, it's 43 right here. You take and 44. So I got a temperature of 44 right here. I take and move these mats over. So it's 59. So I mean, that's a decent, that temperature is good enough to keep my worms alive. But like over here in the corner, you can see that it's frozen. So I mean, that's not good at all. Yeah, see, my worms are just, they're so cold. I'm probably gonna end up losing a bunch of worms throughout this storm that we're having. All I can do is try to prevent it as much as possible, like with these heating pads and the space heater. The winter storms are here, and we're getting hit pretty hard with some cold weather. You can see this is all the way frozen. That's how this corner was. This is all the way frozen, so I'm going to take this hair dryer and just try to warm this up enough where it won't be frozen. Then I'll, you know, continue with the seating heat mats and with my little heater right there. I think if I leave it like this, I might be all right. See some worms down there still moving. So I think I'm going to be able to unthaw most of this, and if I can leave it like this all week until this storm passes over, I can do all right. I won't freeze a bunch of my worms. Still have a lot of life left. It's definitely working over here because this was all frozen. So you can see the worms still pretty active. This corner here is still pretty frozen also. Like I said, my heat's over here, so I mean it's gonna definitely warm up this side, and this side's going to be a little bit slower at warming up. You can see the worms are still pretty active to be in single digits, and we are almost into the negatives right now. Been getting into the negatives at night and then single digits during the day. All right, well, this is what I got going, and see how this works. Like I said, I got a space heater in there framed up with the lids for my totes. Cover it up with some blankets, all the gaps, and try to just contain the heat inside there. I have this lid right on, I can feel the heat coming out right there. I have this lid on top, so I'm hoping that the heat will hit this lid right here, and it'll go down inside my worm bin and hopefully warm them up. All right, this is about 12 hours into having this heater and these blankets on it. I'm already up to 58, so I'm getting a real good rise in temperature. Over here underneath the mats, see, I'm at 67, and it's -2 outside right now, so this is definitely doing the trick. I should have done this just a few days earlier before the sides of my bins froze over. It's like this, all this sides was completely frozen. I took that blow dryer, heated it up enough to unthaw it. It's at like 36 now, but you can tell it's not frozen anymore. It's still pretty cold, but underneath my mats, I got a pretty good temperature. So it looks like this is gonna work. I got a mess. You can see I got my heater right down there. I don't have it too close to anything. I don't want to catch anything on fire. Now I'm taking this lid right here. I'm putting it on top because my heat's traveling through here. You know, heat rises up. So I got my heater right there, pointed in this direction. Instead of putting this lid on, I'm just putting the lid on top of this. So my idea is the heat will travel through here and go down into my bin. And then I just cover up all the gaps with these blankets. Just kind of make like a tarp. I don't know if you guys have ever made tarps when you was a kid, but we used to turn the whole living room into tarps and little tents. I'll come back later on and get another temperature of the soil and let you guys know how this works. Like I said, this is all trial and error. I knew winter was going to be the hardest time, and I'm right here in the heart of it now. All right, it's been 24 hours now since I've had the heater and the blanket. And as you could see from earlier in the video, all this right here was completely frozen. And now it's at about 48. Come over here and look at this side. Underneath my heating mats, got a temperature of 62. Looks like I got some mice in here last night. That's not good. I have to put my screen on just a little bit better. Keep those mice out of here. Yeah, those mice done. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the mice done chewed up my heating mats also. Look at that. So it got down to like -6 last night outside, and my worm bins is still at 80. So I mean, that shows right there that if you do this during the winter, you keep your worms warm enough where they're not going to freeze. All right, I got my bins warmed back up. It took me a little over 24 hours to get my worms back warmed up and active. As you can see, there's a lot of life in here and they are still active. So it looks like I saved the majority of my worms throughout this winter storm that we had. It got down to -10 outside, and I was able to keep my worm bins at a steady temperature from the 70s to 60s here in the center of my bin.